All right. So I just wanted to say hi to everybody and welcome. I'm George. I'm the instructional designer and online educator here at Voicethread. The plan for today is to go over some other features that we didn't talk about in the standard training session and go through a few different things you can do with the assignments and things like that. So the first thing I want to start with is just a very simple little feature that a lot of people don't know about. When you are looking at a VoiceThread on your homepage, what you'll see is that the first slide is what is used as like the cover for that thumbnail. All right, but if you wanted to change that, you can. So I have a VoiceThread here, and you can see there's a man in the park, and he's doing some Tai Chi. And I'm going to open this VoiceThread in a minute, but I just want to go and show you how to add cover art. So if you wanted to replace the image that you see here from slide 1 with a cover, you can do that. And the way to do that is when you go into edit your VoiceThread, you can see that little add cover art feature. So if I click add cover art, I can upload something from my computer. And let's see if I could find this one. All right, so I'm uploading an image that I have, something I created from my Keynote, and I'm going to save. All right, you can see that little thumbnail has been saved there. That's a little tiny preview of it. But if I go back to my homepage, when I look at that VoiceThread, instead of seeing the first slide show up as the cover, it will have that image that I uploaded as the cover. All right, so you can see that that only shows up in this view. It does not show up as part of the slideshow. It's just there more for aesthetic purposes. If you wanted to kind of customize the look of the VoiceThreads on your homepage, you can do that by adding the cover art. All right, the next thing I wanted to do is actually open this VoiceThread up and talk about commenting on video. So I have 2 slides in this VoiceThread. They're both video slides. One is this man doing Tai Chi, and one is a bunch of bees going into their honeycombs and their boxes. Now, when I play a video, I can pause at any point, right? Standard kind of media player behavior. I can play, I can pause. Now, if I go to comment now, my comment is going to be synced up with this spot in the video where I'm pausing, right? So when I click to comment, you can see that that scrubber ball is advanced to that spot in the video, right? But I also still have play controls. So while I am recording, right, I'm recording an audio comment now. While I'm recording, I can press play, and what I'm saying will be recorded in sync with this portion of the video. I can pause, I can rewind, I can go through and continue to make any comments that I need. So I'm going to start this one over just to show you. I'll replay this so you can see what an annotated comment like. So this is just the raw video. If I play it, you'll see the man just go through his Tai Chi poses. But if I start to record, I can play this. I can annotate on the slide however I want to. I can pause. I can scrub back in time and annotate something over here. I can continue to play, pause again, and then save. All right, now I'm going to play that comment for you, and you'll see what it looks like. All right, so you can see the raw video here, and I also have the ability to skip this as this VoiceThread autoplay. So if I just wanted to play all of the comments all the way through, but not have the raw video play, I can have that skip if I want to, just by checking that. All right, but I'm going to show you what this comment looks like. So I recorded my comment with portions of the video playing, and you'll see how it looks now. I can play this. I can annotate on the slide however I want to. I can pause. I can scrub back in time and annotate something over here. I can continue to play, pause again. And all right, so you can see how that commenting on video works. If there's something special that you want to highlight for your students, when it gets to that spot in the video, you can pause, you can record your commentary and continue to play it. And then you can have them watch just the annotated version of your comment if you want. All right, so I'll show you one more time on this other video here. This is a number of bees buzzing around. So you'll hear some audio on this one. Right now, typically, if you have audio playing, you would want to pause while you're recording your comments so the two audio tracks aren't competing with each other. In this one, it's not that bad, but if there were voices or something, it's probably a good idea to pause the video, record what you have to say, and then play it. So I'm going to record a comment on this. All right, so now I can play this. I can pause. You can see the bees buzzing around and all of that good stuff. All right, so now I can play this. I can pause. All right, so you can see how you can use that play control during the comment as you're commenting to highlight certain aspects on the video. All right, does anybody have any questions about anything that I've shown so far, the cover art or the video commenting?
Can students or other users do that video commenting, or is it something that just the creator of the Voicethread can do?
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody can do that. When they play, they can pause the video at certain points. If you want them to comment, let's say, do you teach?
Yeah.
What do you teach?
Well, right now I'm just doing a cultural communication CEU course.
Gotcha. All right. So let's say you had a video of people, maybe it's footage from people in the UN having a discussion, and you can see how they greet each other. And you want the students to pause and say, show me the difference in cultural practices between the greetings of these Japanese delegates versus the Saudi Arabian delegates, and the students can watch the video, they can pause and they can say, okay, so you see here how the person is keeping their hands to themselves and bowing, and now this person is making a gesture, whatever it is. So they can highlight those different aspects in the video. They can pause at that exact spot where they're seeing it. They can annotate using the Doodle tool and all of that.
Cool. That's great. Thanks.
All right. All right, well, let's go to a few other things. This one I did mention in the previous session that we had, but it's something I always like to bring up because some folks aren't aware of it. The speed control, which is next to the play button here. This is normally it's set to play at normal speed, but you can speed up or slow down comments. So for students who are taking a language class, the slow down feature is pretty helpful, so they can hear the instructor, or if there's a video, they can hear the enunciation a little clearer. But if you have a number of comments to go through, and the students are essentially saying things that you're just checking for, factual accuracy, maybe it's not a discussion, they're just answering questions that you may have, and you want to speed up the comments to get through the Voicethread quicker, you can do that. So I'm going to speed my comment up to 1.5 times as fast. All right, now when I play this comment, you'll hear the sped up version of it. I can play this, I can annotate on the slide however I want to, I can pause, I can scrub back. All right, and I can obviously slow that down as well. So I'm going to slow this down to half speed. I can play this. I can. All right, sounds like I had a little too much cold medicine there, but you can see how that works. The speed control, you can change the comments. The only time that you cannot do this is during a watch assignment. The students cannot speed up your comments if you're tracking who has watched the entire Voicethread, but any other Voicethread that you share, the students can speed up or slow down the comments. All right, now, while we're here, I want to also point out up at the top of the conversation channel, you can see a couple of icons. There's that double chevron that you can click to expand the conversation channel, and this just gives you a little more data. You can see when the comment was recorded, what type of comment it was, how long it is in duration. And you can also search for comment. So in this Voicethread, there's only one comment here, but let's say I had 30 students, commenting on every slide of this Voicethread, and I just wanted to isolate one of those students. I can search by typing in their name, and then when I click on their name, it'll just isolate that one comment. So if there were 40 other comments here, they would all be hidden right now until I X'd out of that search view. So if you just want to go through, search by name, and then you can navigate through the Voicethread and see that this person commented on slide 2 as well, and you can continue on through. All right, so that's useful if you have a ton of comments or if you're just looking to isolate one particular student. All right, now there's one other thing that I want to show you here, and that is, this is another accessibility feature that we have for text comments. So let's say, I'm just going to type, hello, my name is George. All right, and I have my text comment here. Right now, when you have a text comment, you can see a little t and a big T. So if I want to increase the size of the text, I can click on the big T and make it much larger. So for folks that have any type of vision issues, I know, my mother on her cell phone, she has the apps expanded to much larger size. So she doesn't have to kind of peer over the top of her glasses and, hold things at odd angles to see them. So for anybody, that has any issues like that, the people in my family, we don't have great eyesight. Everybody has glasses of all different types. So these are the kinds of things that can help that you may not normally think of as an accessibility issue, but it makes the text comments in Voicethread more accessible for folks that may be farsighted or things like that. All right, now I'm going to show you a couple of other ideas for lesson design. So for this one, this is a gamified version of a Voicethread type of a quiz. So I'm just going to bring D2L Brightspace into this here. And I'm just going to open up. I have a comment assignment set up, but I'm going to go into edit this to get into the settings. All right, now the settings I have some options here to limit the length of the comments, right? So in this one, I actually have it already set to 1 minute, but I can set this to whatever I want it to be. So let's say I want to set it to 15 seconds. And maybe I want comment moderation turned on as well so that the students can't see each other's answers, right? Now, when the student goes to record a comment, when it's set up like this with a limit of 15 seconds, they will see a timer counting down on the bottom of the voice thread. And once they hit the 15 seconds, it will automatically stop their comment, and then they'll have the ability to cancel or save it or re-record a new one. So that's something you can set up. And this is an example of a type of kind of gamified lesson where you can have the students kind of competing and responding to short answer questions more quickly. So this one is for a chemistry class, and this is just a sample of the type of initial comment I would have, to explain the rules to the students.
Okay, for this one, you have 10 seconds to mark and name as many elements as you can. On your mark, get set, go.
All right, so when the students start to comment, you can see I've only allowed 2 different types of comments, the audio and the webcam options. All right, so that's another thing that you can set up on any voice thread, but you can also decide which comment types you will allow in an assignment builder, right? Any assignment that you have. So this is what it would look like for the assignment that I have. Actually, I made this worth 10 seconds, so let's adjust that. But this is how it goes. So when I start to comment here, you can see the timer counting down, right? 4, 3, and let me start this from the beginning. So I can start this as a student, and I can go through and I can say, okay, this is iron, this is hydrogen, this is helium, and go through as many as I can. All right, now I had shown this to some folks in a workshop once, and somebody said, but if this is done on Voicethread, can't the students just answer to the best of their ability and then go and look up answers to the other elements and then redo it with an improved answer? And my answer to that is yes, they can. And that's kind of the goal, right? If you just ask the students name as many of these elements as you can, and there's no gamified element to this, they'll name what they can and they'll move on. But if they know that maybe that you're going to keep track of who has the most, and maybe you're going to put up a slide with a little leaderboard on this voice thread, after a few days, the students might get competitive. And that's the whole point of gamifying some of these activities, is to tap into that competitive spirit. So it motivates the students to do more than they would do if this were not gamified. So the students can come in, they name as many as they can, and they know that their friend already got 12 and they only got 10. So they're going to stop and they're going to say, okay, I have to learn a couple of more of these. So they're going to go and look at the periodic table and try and remember, gold or whatever else they want to learn, and then try to get them all in to beat their friend. And if they don't do it, then they're going to redo it and try again and try again. So the goal here is to get the students to learn as much as possible and be able to display that they know that information, right? Demonstrate that for you. And that's what gamifying a lesson can do. When a student doesn't have that competitive aspect tied in, they might just do what they can and move on. But when it's gamified, they'll probably, especially the competitive students, will try to redo it and constantly improve what they're doing. And you'll get more out of them than just a normal standard type of lesson. All right, now here's another one. This one is not timed, but this is one that you can do also where you create it like a game, and the students can use the Doodle tool for this. So for this, let's say I have comment moderation turned on, and I just want to see which students can get the correct answer and give them points for that. And then maybe on the next slide, there's another question. And the first student to get the correct answer might get 5 points. The next student to get the correct answer gets 3 points, and so on. And then, all the students will respond. And if comment moderation is turned on, they won't see any of the other students' answers. They won't know if they're the first student to answer, the last student, or somewhere in the middle. So they're going to all answer the question, and then you can keep track of who gets the points. And then if you wanted to reveal their answers, you could. If you had comment moderation turned on, you can always reveal their answers later after the quiz is over. But in this particular example, this is from a nursing educator, and she created this little blood transfusion game.
Hi, students. Today we learned about blood typing. So I'd like for you to complete this activity. You're the nurse in an ER, and the patient Andrew has just been brought in after being in a car accident. He needs a blood transfusion, and we've already done a type across, and we know that his blood type is B positive. Circle all the blood types below that this patient can receive. So using the Doodle Tool, draw a circle around any of the blood types below that this patient can receive.
All right, so then the students can come in, they can record their answer, and they can use the Doodle tool. I don't know if I'm getting these right, but you can see how you can circle, right? They can choose different colors if they want, decide if they want it to fade or not. But that's something you can do. Now, for this particular type of game, if you're asking them to use the Doodle tool, the Doodle tool syncs up with what you're saying during your comment. So it's only available during comments that have audio. So an audio or a webcam comment would work. So in this one, she has the text comment feature still available, and the file upload and the telephone comments available. So these are the ones that you would probably want to remove in the the allowed comment methods. And you can do that within the assignment builder, like I showed, or you can do it within the Voicethread itself. So you can go to edit the Voicethread and remove the different types of comments that you don't want the student to use. All right, so now when a student goes to comment on this Voicethread, let me just refresh this. When a student goes to comment on this Voicethread, they will only see the comment types that you allowed in that comment fan, whether it's something you created in the assignment builder or on Voicethread itself. All right, so now I can see that I've removed those other 3 that won't work for this because it's a doodle game, and I left the 2 that will work. All right, do we have any questions about any of these kind of gamified ideas or assessments, or even if it's not something that's necessarily graded, if it's just for fun or just for your edification, a way to do some formative assessment? These are things that you can do. Is there anything about what I showed you so far that doesn't quite click? Anything else that you wanted to see about that?
George, I had a question. This is Allison.
Sure.
I'm wondering, so that looks like a PDF of some kind. If there's like alternative text on that, how would a student with a screen reader or assistive technology here the alternative text? Would it be, is there a way for them to just kind of automatically works with VoiceThread or?
Yeah, so keep in mind for a screen reader, I'll show you the screen reader version of VoiceThread. That's called VoiceThread Universal. And that's just a different display setting. But the Doodle Tool doesn't work with the screen reader version of VoiceThread because the screen reader is used for blind students. So the Doodle Tool wouldn't be something that would be effective for students in that population. But you can add alt text to any VoiceThread. So if I go to a slide here, I can edit any slide that I want by clicking on the pencil, and I can paste the alt text in here.
Oh, nice. Okay.
All right. And so for VoiceThread Universal, I can show you what that looks like. So there's a number of ways to get there. You can get into the display preferences if you wanted to set your VoiceThread account to always be in VoiceThread Universal. That's something that you can do with the student. But you can also just take a quick peek if you want. If you go to voicethread.com/u, that will load the screen reader view of VoiceThread. So I can see all of the voice threads here. I can click to play these. All right, and any of the comments I can play. You know, if it's an audio comment, I can play that.
Okay, for this one, you have 10 seconds.
All right, and you can still control the speed, and you can, make any of the normal adjustments. For the text, I don't have a screen reader on this machine, but I can. Where is the speech? Hold on. Oh, here we go. Sorry. So this is similar. This is, the Chrome version of text to speech.
VoiceThread Universal skip to main content 26 pop quiz game time slide 1 of 1 untitled image thread overview plus expand image edit slide comments George Haines text comment May 9th 2022 10:31 a.m. collapse comment you will need to use the Doodle tool to let me know which element you are naming edit delete George Haines audio comment main. All
right, so the screen reader would just crawl over the screen and read all of the text that are there. And the students who, if they use JAWS or something like that, they can use their keyboard commands. But for this particular example, with Doodle tools, that's not available for VoiceThread Universal.
Thank you for that.
Of course. All right, do we have other questions about these before we move on to some other stuff? I don't see any other questions in the chat, but if you do have them, please feel free to let me know. Something else I wanted to show you from an accessibility standpoint, if you're dealing with students that may not be native English speakers, you can have them customize the local language on their VoiceThread interfaces to match a variety of different languages. Or if you teach a foreign language and you want your students to be immersed in their VoiceThread environment in that language, you can set that up as well. So what do I mean by local language? If you look around on the VoiceThread page that I'm on here, you can see a lot of English text. Home, browse, create, add media, comment, share. There's help, about, training, right? There's a number of different things that are written in English, but I can change this once again if I go into my display preferences. Right, here's where I can change to VoiceThread Universal if I want, but I can also change the language that shows up. So mine is set to US English, but I can change this to Spanish, French, Portuguese, Russian, Chinese, Korean, Arabic. What's the other one? Oh, Japanese. So let's go in. Let's say I want to make this Spanish. All right, so I'm going to change this to Spanish. And when I click save, it's going to just reload the page and translate it. And you can see my browser is already aware of the fact that this is all being translated. And they're asking if I want to change it back to English because they know I'm in America. But let's go back here. And once this loads, you'll see what the page looks like with all the new updates. So now you can see home, browse, create, right? The help tab, the about menu, the training menu. If I get in here, add media, comment, share. right? All of that stuff has been translated. The options, playback settings, that's all been translated into Spanish. Right? The only things that you see in English are things that I manually typed in, like the title of the voice thread. It's not going to change the things that you manually type in. It just changes the stuff that is there by default in Voicethread. All right, now while we're here, I can also change my background from dark to light if I want. So you can see I'm going to change this back to English, and I'm also going to change it to the white background. And that will once again just reload the page and set it up, and you'll see that the background has been changed to white. All right, so now you can see the contrast shows up a little differently, right? So that's just another option that you have if you like. I'm going to go back and change this to dark because I don't like the white background as much as I like the black one. All right, now I showed you how to get to the display preferences through this menu. There's some other stuff that you may want to experiment with as well. If you go into your account, you can change your notification settings. So I know this is a big one for students. You know, if they comment on a voice thread, let's say you share a voice thread using the individual voice thread method in D2L Brightspace, and the students are commenting on it, you're having a really robust conversation, but when you have 30 students and they're all commenting, you're going to get a lot of notifications that students are commenting. So you may not want that either as the instructor, or the students may not want all of those notifications. So you can go into your account, and this is where you can kind of go behind the scenes here. But if I go to my notifications tab, I can change all of these different settings. So these are the instant notification preferences. So I'll get an email as soon as someone comments on a voice thread that I've created, one that I've subscribed to, one that I've commented on, one that I've edited, or one that I've shared. I can turn all of these off if I want and just get the daily notification. So I can turn off these on a more granular level as well. So I know some people just want to get the daily digest. So you'll get one email in the evening that lists all of the comments that you've received, you know, all of the notifications that you have on all the various voice threads that you have out in the wild. You can just leave that one on and turn off the rest. Just keep in mind, you know, if there's a student that records a comment at 10 a.m. that says, I don't understand the assignment, I'm having trouble, can you help me? And you don't have the instant notifications turned on, you won't see that until later on in the evening, and it may be too late. So I always like to keep my notifications all turned on so I don't miss anything. But depending on how you're using VoiceThread or what your communication policy is with your students, you can always change those settings as much as you want and make it fit your preferred style. All right, now there's another thing I want to show you. So in the assignment builder, if I create a comment assignment, when I go to that assignment, it's going to collate all of the student responses. So, you know, if I have, let's say, a 5-slide voice thread and there's a comment on a question on each slide and the students have to respond, I don't have to go through the voice thread to find all of that, all of the student comments. They'll all be lined up for me in the grading interface. And I can just go through that student and listen to their answers, go to the next student, listen to their answers, etc. But I can do something similar to that on non-graded activities. So let's say I go to my VoiceThread homepage. Up here, I can see a notification tab. And this is a little menu that shows me all of the different comments on voice threads that I have access to, whether someone shared them with me or I created them. And I can get a little snapshot here. But I can also go to the bottom here and click See All, and that's going to take me to the expanded activity feed. So this was how people used to grade voice threads before we had VoiceThread integrated into you know, a learning management system like D2L Brightspace, but there's still functionality for this feature if you create a voice thread that you want to go through, but it's not an assignment that you created through the assignment builder. So I can see a number of different options here. I can sort this list of activity by day and thread or by commenter. So let's say I want to go by commenter. I click commenter and I can see Brandon has commented a number of times on all of these different voice threads. There's a chapter 1 voice thread, a chapter 2, a chapter 4, 5, 6. So it looks like he skipped 3, but I can see all of these. And if I click on one of these comments, it will open that voice thread and take me right to his comment. So let's say I want to go through here. I can see this. I want to find one that's not an actual student. All right, let's go to this one. So let's say I want to go to Wendy's comment that was recorded on May 1st. I click on her in the list. It's going to load that voice thread and go right to her comment. All right, so now I can see that. I can respond to her if I want to, or I can move to another comment. If I click on that, it will load that voice thread and take me right to that comment. So I can respond to her, go to another one, and it'll just automatically load whatever voice thread she's commented on and take me right to her comment. I can go to the next student and I can see, okay, he commented on all of these. So it's similar to what the view you might get in a comment assignment if you use the assignment builder, but this is just a native VoiceThread feature that you can access from your homepage. All right, do we have any questions about anything I've shown you so far before we move on to some other stuff? Anything about the activity feed or the notifications, the different display settings? All right, nothing yet. So just to show you, this is a quiz that we have in the VoiceThread Certified Educator course. And I had mentioned comment moderation. If you haven't used it, I just want to show you what it looks like. All right, so these comments are all moderated comments, and you can see they're grayed out and they're a little offset. When I go to one, it'll make it look kind of normal, but it'll have that closed eye icon. And that's just a reminder that this comment is moderated, which means nobody else in the class can see it. I can see it because I created this voice thread, but the other participants in the course, when they open this voice thread up, all they see is my comment. And then when they record theirs, they'll see their comment as well. All right, now for moderated comments on some type of a quiz, if you record a response using the normal comment feature, it will be saved in the conversation channel, but it won't have any context for anybody. So anybody that comes into the voice thread, they're not going to see the person that you're replying to. They're just going to see your answer, where you're going to say, great job, you got the question right. And they're not going to know what you mean by that, right? So when you have comments that are moderated for some type of quiz or assessment, the preferred best practice is to respond to that person using the private reply feature. And that's what you can see I've done here. So in a comment, regardless whether it's moderated or not, you can see that lock icon. And if I click on that, it will insert my identity image into the conversation channel connected to hers. And you can see that lock lets me know it's a private comment. All right, so if I move throughout the comments here, you can see I responded to everybody just to let them know they got the answer correct.
Hey, Beth, great answer here. So the big thing.
All right, and you can see all of the comments. When I hover over them, it kind of brings them to life, but otherwise they're dim and they're offset. And that's just some visual indicators to let you know they're moderated. So this is what a quiz would look like. You know, the conversation channel in a quiz looks like in a voice thread. A moderated comment, and then the kind of bookend to that is my private reply, letting them know, you know, giving them some feedback on their answer, letting them know what they got right, or anything else that I wanted to add in there. All right, now this is an example that I like. This is a storytelling example. So this is something else that you can do on VoiceThread. Instead of just creating a standard type of lecture, you can use storytelling. And I'm a big fan of educators who do this because it really helps bring context to what you're saying, and it makes everything more memorable. Right? There's a lot of research out there on the cognitive science of storytelling and the use of narrative and how it creates a framework in your brain as a listener where you can kind of add the facts in there. and it becomes something that's a more memorable experience than just kind of a list of facts. And this example is one that was created by an instructional designer. And what she was doing here was trying to create some tutorials for her faculty explaining how to use Google Calendar, right? The university where she worked had just gotten a license for the Google suite of tools. So their email was Google, and they could use Google Docs and Google Calendar. And her job was to let everybody know how and why they can use these different features in this tool. So what she could have done is just record a number of tutorials, screencasts, and uploaded them to VoiceThread. And that's fine, right? That's something that I've done before, and a number of people do that. But what this instructional designer decided to do was add a story element to this. So she's going to kind of set the context as to why somebody might use this, create a scenario where the person might want to use these tools. So she starts off with a slide that has nothing to do with Google Calendar, but has to do with the story.
I want to introduce you to Laura. Here she is. Laura is a busy mom with 2 kids and 1 on the way. She's married to her husband, Tom, who is right over here, and both of them work full-time jobs.
All right, so she goes on to explain a little bit about, what Laura's life is like and how she has a lot of activities to remember between the kids and work and all of this stuff. So she goes on to kind of frame this as, the basic formula for any story is to introduce some type of problem, some type of conflict, obstacle, something that the person wants to do, but they're being prevented from doing, right? And I had taken a storytelling workshop once, and the lesson that I learned from that workshop was very simple, but really helpful. The person who taught the workshop said, all you really need for a story is the word but, B-U-T. So you introduce a character and you say, this person wants to be organized, but they don't have a system for doing that. Or, but they're forgetful, or whatever it is, right? So you introduce the but, that's the obstacle that you have. So her obstacle was that she was just trying to remember things, scribbling notes or whatever it may be, using her calendar in the kitchen, where, it's not really helpful when she's in the car. She can't drive back home and look at the calendar, right? So it helps to have something that's digital, like Google Calendar. So she sets that up as a story, and then she gets into how everything works in the actual tool using her screencast tools here.
Okay, so we're here and we're working with Laura's checklist. The first thing on her checklist is how to create an event. And currently we're just working with her regular calendar. Now, here mine says IT training, because obviously we are in a training course, but you can just pretend that this would say her name. So we want to create an event on her calendar so she can start to organize her life. And we're going to show her 2 ways of doing that. The first way is the long way, where we're going to click the create button here in the upper left.
All right, so instead of just having a tutorial, which is certainly helpful, she's adding storytelling elements in this, narrative elements to make it, so the next time maybe you miss an appointment, you might say, oh, you know what? I should go back and check out that tutorial that Christina created for me and learn how to set these reminders up in my Google Calendar, right? So it helps connect these dots for you in real life. And this is something that works really well in this context, but really could work in any context, educationally, right? So when you're talking about grammar rules and, when you should use the formal voice versus the informal voice, or when you're talking about quantum physics and how different molecules behave because of what's happening on the quantum level, or whatever it is you teach history, there's always a story in there, right? There's always something that you can put into a story structure. And when you can use this, especially on an intro slide, you can make all of the activities a little more memorable. All right, now this is a voice thread that I created with my students a long time ago. So these students happen to be 7th graders, but don't worry so much about the content. Just focus on the feature that I'm showing you here, is that you can allow students to add slides to your voice thread. This is something you can do on any voice thread that you create. If I go into edit this voice thread, I can go into the playback settings and I can allow commenters to add slides to this voice thread. and I click save, they'll be able to upload slides to this, right? But you can also set this up in the assignment builder. So let me go back into this quiz. And I'm going to go into edit this one. I'll show you the setting, the same setting, but just the interface is slightly different. All right, so I'm into the playback settings for this assignment, and you can see allow students to add slides to any voice threads for this assignment. So I can turn that on, and I can also decide how many slides they can add. So I can set this up as a 1 slide minimum, 1 slide maximum, or an exact number of slides. All right, so for this one, this was a voice thread that I created with their math instructor, and we had partnered the students up and given them a different part of the textbook to learn and then teach their classmates. So this is something you can use this for a number of different activities. This is just the idea that we had for this lesson, recreating their textbook. But I've seen this done for something as simple as introductions, where you allow students to add slides to the voice thread and upload a picture of them with their pets or them, doing their hobby, whatever it may be. Maybe your students, love crochet, or they like jet skiing, or whatever it is. They can add that stuff in there, and you can make the course introduction voice thread really memorable. I've also seen this with an instructor who taught an archaeology class, and she had asked the students to upload examples of the different markings that you can find on archaeological artifacts that are kind of indicative of tool use. So was this hunk of bone, was it scraped naturally from some kind of a landslide, or is that scratch that we see on it from a specific tool, right? And how can you identify that? So analyzing images, right? And like I said, there's any number of things that you can do. You can have music students upload the sheet music to a song they wrote, and then they can record themselves playing it, and other students can comment on that, right? Whatever you want them to add to the voice thread, you can have them add. In this case, it happens to be a math textbook, and I'll show you what the student did with this one, but you can see the student uploaded a slide, and they're going to go through and narrate and teach this a lesson to their classmates.
To find slope-intercept of 2, 2, and 5, 5, you'd have to find the rise and the run of the y and x axes. First, to find the x-axis, you'd have to find the point and move over as many spots as you have to till you meet with the point, which is 3. And to find...
All right, now what was really neat about this activity is that, and this is something I didn't realize about VoiceThread when I first started using it with my own students. I used VoiceThread because it was asynchronous, and it made it life a lot easier because it took all the scheduling headaches, away. So I used to like to connect my classes to people around the world, other classrooms. I used to bring in, guest speakers and things like that. And when you have to schedule that stuff, it's really difficult. But VoiceThread, because it was asynchronous, was great for me. What I did not realize was that it was going to improve the quality of the student work. So if we had tried to do this as a live lesson where the student is standing in front of the class, the student might do a good job. Like this student did the first time they recorded their lesson. The student did a good job, and class was over, and then I marked the student as complete for this. The student came back at the end of the day, and this student was not like an honor roll type of student. They were a struggling student in many of their classes, but this student came back to me at the end of the day and said, I want to redo that slide where I recorded the lesson about the slope intercept. And I was like, it was confusing to me. And I said, you already did it. I marked you off. You're good. Like, don't worry about it. And the student said, I know that I did what I had to do, but I think I can do a better job. And because the students can hear themselves play back and they can have a little more objective view on their work, it helps them see where they're missing something, where they can make it better. And they have a natural instinct to want to improve. Not every student, right? But it's one of those types of things, like when you are teaching writing or you have students write a paper, you typically don't tell them, sit down, type out the paper, and immediately send it to me. You tell them to write the paper, let it sit overnight, look at it the next day, edit it, make some changes, submit a rough draft to me as the teacher. I'll go through it. I'll find some areas for improvement. I'll give it back to you. You make more changes, right? And you keep iterating. that draft process works extremely well when it comes to paper writing, but people tend to abandon that when it comes to speaking, right? If the student raises their hand and gives you an answer in class, they have one shot to get the answer right. It's the same thing as typing a paper out and sending it to you right away. But on VoiceThread, they can use that same drafting process where they record what they're going to say, and then they can listen to it play back, they can delete it, record a better version, and continue on like that. All right, and you can have students do this kind of thing in any VoiceThread that you create. You can have them add slides to your VoiceThread and build a textbook or build whatever they want. But I just wanted to highlight that added element here with this particular example. All right, this is the final example I want to show you, and this is a Pecha, Kucha, or Ignite example. So if you're not familiar with those concepts, these are things that you can do on VoiceThread. On any VoiceThread that you create, you can set it up as a Pecha, Kucha, or Ignite style presentation. If you've never seen them, I recommend checking them out. You can go on YouTube and just type in, either of these words, Ignite presentation or Pecha, Kucha presentation. It's a very strict format for a presentation. So the Pecha, Kucha comes from Japan. The Ignite is the one that was kind of adapted to an American audience. But the basics are the exact same for these. There's one small difference. So the format works like this. It's a presentation where the person has exactly 20 slides, and the slides automatically advance. So you don't have control over when the slides advance. The Pecha, Kucha advances every 20 seconds. The Ignite advances every 15 seconds. So for 20 slides, 15 seconds per slide, the Ignite format gives you a nice round number of 5 minutes. The Pecha, Kucha example gives you 6 minutes and 40 seconds as a standard for the presentation. But what this does is it makes the presentation flow. And when you go to one of these events, just like if you would go to see a TED Talk, TED Talks are not, there's some standardization, right? The TED Talks tend to be about 20 minutes, but they're more free ranging, right? People can spend as much time as they want on the slide. They can pause for dramatic effect a little more and things like that. These presentations are more tight. They're more to the point, but the ideas are the same. These are not what you would use for your standard lecture, where you just upload a PowerPoint that has some bullet points and you're going through stuff. This is more for like big idea type of stuff, where you're talking to your students about, some more grand narrative in what you're discussing. So, maybe you teach a class on astrophysics and you want to talk about, the phenomenon of the Goldilocks universe, where, all the settings that are kind of set up in the universe are set for life to emerge. And why is that? And what would happen if you changed the strength of gravity, or the distance between the electron and the proton, or whatever it is, right? So you can have these more grand narratives, things that you would have in a TED Talk, some big picture items. But these are great for student presentations, or if you want to kind of open things up in a big sense for your students. And this is something you can set up in the create assignment. So let's say I have a presentation assignment, but I want it to be one of these format styles. You can set this up like I showed you in the playback settings for any VoiceThread, but you can also set it up here. So let me just go back to my settings. All right, now you can see this setting here, when recording, automatically advance to the next slide after X amount of seconds. So I can have this set to the Pecha, Kucha style, the Ignite style, or I can even make up my own. You can invent one where you have the slides automatically advance every 30 seconds or something like that. So this is a create assignment where the students are creating their VoiceThread and submitting it to you for a grade, but you can have it set up this way. So this is something I would be cautious with, and that's why I saved this for the end, because this is something that you want to have experience with before you dive in. These are very difficult to do, so it takes a lot of practice and it takes a lot of familiarity with it to kind of understand when and why you would use it. But if you are somebody who's familiar with these, or you get familiar with them, and you can let your students know exactly what the goal here is and how they work, and they can practice this. So this is how you can set this up as an assignment, but like I said, you can also set it up for any VoiceThread that you want. And for this example, you can see this is not just your standard student presentation where they're going through some bullet points on a PowerPoint. They're talking about big ticket items, things that have some emotional impact, the kind of things that you would give as a keynote speech, not as a breakout session, right? Think of it like that.
As the Black Lives Matter movement asks society to answer the question, do Black Lives Matter? Dr. Tatsiang Benny Liu asks his fellow professors, does Black scholarship matter? This question is important to Dr. Liu because if Black scholarship doesn't matter, he wonders, does Asian scholarship matter? Dr. Liu was able to look around and see that some of the most used textbooks for Intro to Bible courses didn't include Blacks.
All right, so I'm going to stop there, but you can see how during the comment, the slides automatically advance, and you have one shot, you get the whole presentation done in one comment. You can always stop if you mess up and re-record a new one, and there will be plenty of that. But the entire presentation is one unbroken comment the entire time, and the slides will automatically advance whether you're ready or not. All right, I think that is everything I had planned to show you today. But I want to stop and see what questions we have. Is there anything that I showed you that you want to see in more depth, or anything I didn't show you that you would like to see? Any questions you have unrelated to anything that I showed today?
Hi, George, this is Brian. I just had a general question. I know sometimes I get confused when you're an instructor in the course. So you can create assignments from your VoiceThread homepage in D2L, but then you can also just create like from the assignment builder. And it seems like when you create it from your homepage, you can make a copy and then use it again. But if you just make it from the assignment builder in the D2L course, that really doesn't exist anywhere else. Does that sound right?
Exactly right. So when you create, you can share a VoiceThread as an individual VoiceThread in D2L, and that's sharing the original. But anything you do with the assignment builder, it's going to make a copy of that VoiceThread. So let's say I'm going to set up I'm going to go into my assignment builder and I'm going to create a comment assignment. All right, where I want the students, it's like a quiz. Maybe I'm creating one of those gamified type of quizzes. So I select the comment assignment, I continue, and let me stretch this out. I can see all of the VoiceThreads from my homepage. I select the one that I want to use, but whenever you create something using the assignment builder, it makes a copy of it, and that copy lives in this assignment link. So when I go through and I'll set the settings up and publish it, the students will open this assignment up by clicking on the assignment link. The original that I made the copy from, I'll see that on my homepage. There'll be no comments on that because that's not actually being shared with the students. This one is being copied, and that copy lives only in this assignment link.
So it seems like it's a good flow as an instructor to maybe just ahead of time create your originals, like from your homepage, your VoiceThread homepage.
For sure, that's what I do.
Okay.
I go to my homepage because, I mean, if you think about it, when you're creating a lecture, it's usually not something that you'll do in like one sitting. You'll want to add to it, just like we talked about with writing papers. It's no different for creating content for your students. You might do a great job of uploading your PowerPoint, recording your comments, and then the next day you go back and you're like, wow, I really mangled slide 3. Let me re-record that. I think I can make it a lot clearer, so that's typically what I do. I use my homepage as my workspace. And then once I'm ready to start sharing them as lectures or as assignments, then I'll go through and create the link and add them in the course.
Great, thanks.
George, hi, this is Emma. I have a question which may take longer. I don't know if it's appropriate for today, but my biggest stumbling block, so I'm a designer, and so I'm sort of thinking about creating these courses that will get used over and over and over again by multiple faculty, potentially over multiple terms. And I'm wondering, if you could illuminate a few of the best practices in those cases. I have a sense that it involves maybe working out of the home, instance of VoiceThread, and maybe creating groups that are faculty. Can multiple people in a group own a VoiceThread and have like power over it? Or then does that cause problems when people are putting it into different sections? I guess I just get really confused about that. And then I'm like too scared to use it
Yeah.
in a design setting.
So the answer to both of those questions is yes. Multiple people can own a VoiceThread, so to speak. They can all have edit access, but when you all share the same VoiceThread, if you share that with your students and your students comment on it, the other professor that also has edit access is going to see my students' comments. So that's typically not what you want to do. You only want to share edit access if you're both, like your team teaching the class or something like that.
Okay.
You would want to do in the situation that you just described, if you want to use the same VoiceThread, but I mean the same content in that VoiceThread, but not literally the same VoiceThread, what you would do is have them each make their own copy.
And there's no way around that. I mean, every term that someone is using that VoiceThread, that's going to be part of the workflow. Is you've got to make a copy, you've got to put it in your course where you want it, you've got to edit it however it needs to be edited for your class, and that's just gonna have to happen every term.
No, really only the first time through, because you have the deep linking integration, the updated LTI integration. So when you copy a course over, so let's say I copy this course shell, because you have the upgraded deep linking 1.3 integration, it's going to copy all of those links and all of the voice threads that are associated with them. So
without the comments?
With the instructor comments.
But not the student comments?
Correct.
Okay.
The only thing that you'll need to do, so let's say I share an individual voice thread for a lecture, and it copies over all of my comments. But at one point last semester, a student had commented on it and said, is this on page 64? I have the 10th edition. And the instructor responds, but they don't use the threaded replies.
Right.
If they just record a normal response, that response will be there. So it's always a good idea just to click on the link in the beginning of the week before the students are in the course, and just check and make sure all of the comments are actually appropriate for the upcoming semester, and that you don't have any extraneous response comments in there, kind of on the same page.
Right. And if you built any of those links as an assignment, when you copy the course over, they'll still be assignments.
Yep, it's all the same settings. So just make sure that you still want those settings, but it will copy everything over without the student comments, just the instructor comments.
Okay, so, okay, that makes sense. I have to play around with it a little bit, but that's very encouraging.
Yeah, that's why we really pushed as many institutions as possible to go with the integration that you have, because in the old one, it would copy the link over, but then you would have to reconfigure each link. And that's time consuming, especially if you're doing, course copies of multiple people. But with the 1.3, it made that whole thing way easier. So
Okay.
The only thing is just to go in there and just make sure that you don't have any kind of fringe comments, but otherwise it does all the work for you.
So you're saying stop being scared.
Yeah, stop being scared.
I'll try.
George, I've been, and this, we don't have a ton of time, so if this is too long of a question, we can just hold off, but I've been thinking a lot about open pedagogy and how to help, because I'm a designer too, so I've been trying to figure out ways to kind of support faculty who want to create ways for students to, kind of do what you showed with like the math example, where students, they got in and they described, slope intercept or whatever it was. Is there a way to kind of take great voice threads that students make and create like a gallery or something for other students to reference later? Like in my next class, I could say, hey, check out, this, all of these short videos on this chapter that past students have created.
Yeah, so there's a few ways to do that. The first thing I would say as the instructor, if you want to use other students' voice threads from previous semesters, have the student share it with you and make a copy of it.
Okay.
So you have your own copy. And then once you have your own copy, you can add them as individual voice threads in the course. Or you can just drag and drop them into the course group. They won't have as much structure, as if you have them in other places. But let's say I have, my course group here. I can take this voice thread and drag and drop it in there, and then point my students to it. So
okay, that's cool.
You'll have to give the students directions. Make sure you go to your homepage and click on the course group, and then look for the voice thread of this title, that sort of thing. There is one other element to that. Like, let's say I had just one example. Let's say I'm setting up a create assignment where I want the students to create a presentation, and I want to show the best example from last semester. I can add that in. So let me go in to edit this assignment. This is a create assignment. There's actually a field for adding a URL for an example.
Oh.
So if I go in here.
I've seen that. I've always wondered what.
Yeah, so I have an example URL. I can just get the basic share link, paste it here. And, in my instructions, I can say to the students, hey, click on that example URL and you'll see what this assignment should look like. This was an A+ presentation from last semester. There's only room for one in there, but you can add it in there.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks.
All right. Yeah, I agree, Emma. I think it's a great idea.
I've been trying to think about tools that would kind of make it easier for faculty to collect that stuff and share it with students without a big tech lift.
Yeah. That's one of those things, once you get used to using it, it becomes very easy. The initial barrier to entry is always the hardest part to get over, but once you get over that hump, then, it becomes second nature.
Yeah. And then I helped Sharon Burrell take over Delpha's course that she had a bunch of VoiceThread in. And if you want, I can kind of talk you through what that looked like.
That would be awesome. And I've heard rumors about that experience.
We learned so much. It was actually kind of awesome. And Sharon was super sweet about it. But I was like, oh, this is good because we're learning a lot about this. And
I almost feel like you should do a little just a department workshop on that experience.
Oh my gosh, the retrospective. I don't know, Brian would have to help me because I was constantly like, hey, Brian.
But that's a real world, and that's exactly the situation, right? Like an instructor inherits all these incredible, beautifully crafted voice threads by someone who is super comfortable with them.
Yes.
But they are totally uncomfortable, and it causes consternation. I mean,
yeah. But with 1.3, it's way better because that happened at the same time that we switched to 1.3. So there was an extra bit of chaos there, but I think 1.3 actually makes that, like George was saying, a lot easier.
That's awesome. Because I don't want to be afraid. This tool is got just such unlimited possibilities.
Yeah.
Yeah, have no fear. And if you ever have questions, you can always reach out to us. Our support team is always happy to help. And we do have, workshops every month. And we do have our certification course if you want to take a real deep dive.
Ooh.
It's all there for you.
Yeah, I actually converted another instructor this term. She's doing early childhood education. And the students typically in not COVID times need to observe each other and be in classrooms with preschoolers and stuff. And so I was like, VoiceThread's a great way for you to have students record themselves doing things, talking through, whatever. And so I'm excited to see what she thinks of it. She hasn't reached out for support so far. So it seems to me like it's been easy, for her students to use. So.
That's awesome, Allison.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. One thing that was her idea that was really smart was she had the students do their introductions instead of in a discussion board. She had them do it in VoiceThread so that they could get used to the tool. And so it was like a low stakes way for them to interact with VoiceThread without it being like a, you know, high stakes assignment.
What a classic education teacher thing.
I know.
How can we scaffold this?
Yeah, it was her idea. I was like, oh my gosh, that's such a great idea for students to just get in and use the tool, but without it being like, okay, now you're going to turn in your final project and we're also introducing you to this brand new tool. So that's pretty cool.
All right. Well, I think we may be done. I don't see any other questions in the chat. But I did want to say thank you to everybody, and thanks to Brian for setting this up. And it was great to hear your questions and different use cases. I mean, you can always reach out to us with any other questions that you have. You know, you think of something later today or next week. Don't be shy. We'd love to help you and guide you whatever you need.
Thanks, George. I really appreciate all your examples.
Yeah, George, thanks again. That was great. And I'd like to thank Melanie for helping me set it up. And we've got the recording. So Melanie, I think you'll get a copy of the recording. So we'll probably be sending that out to people or making it available. But thanks again, George.
All right, folks, have a great rest of your week and happy voice threading.